Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, the question that's on our minds is finances and marriage. Very important topics. We routinely talk to people about this. We talk to each other about this. It's a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly topic. The question that I can start us off with is money really that important in marriage? What are your thoughts on that, Peter?
Yes. Money, I believe, is very important in marriage. And I know me being a Christian, that can be controversial in some senses. But, the more I study about money, the more I've spoken with various pastors about this, it's actually fairly clear that it is important. Now, you shouldn't love money, but it absolutely is important. Think about the statistics here, right? It's one of the top reasons why people get into a divorce is because, there's like infidelity, there's some other factors, but finances are definitely one of the top. They say 30% of those people who argue about finances once a week have, 30% of those people tend to get into a divorce, like more likely to get into a divorce. And so, yeah, it's important. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for some men, a lot of women, is security, right? And so if that security is shaken, where if you don't have, like, for example, if you only have a certain amount in your bank account and one parking ticket or one speeding ticket can set you guys off and just put you into a financial hole, obviously that makes someone insecure. And when you get someone who is insecure, that will also bring the worst side of people from my experience. So,
on the other coin, or the flip side of that coin, if you're talking about women's sense of security, I think for guys, it's also a sense of self-worth, right? The income that you can bring to the table. How can you guide your whole family into a prosperous future? Are you planning for retirement? Are you having these different buckets of savings accounts or funds to fund anything? It could be a trip. My wife and I are just talking about 2 big trips that are coming up, and it's like, what are we doing to get ready for that, right? So I definitely agree. It's something that we talk about, my wife and I talk about all the time.
It is important, right? So for people who are not married, they're going to think, they have that blind love, right? They don't really think about finances as much. We're going to figure it out, which I'm sure you can, absolutely. And yet for people who have been doing this for a while, people older than us, they'll tell you, like, yeah, finances are important. It's something that you have to work on together, or else if you don't, you're going to be arguing about it all the time. Like, you're planning your money, right? You're planning your vacations. There's so much planning that goes with money. And so, yeah. Something that you mentioned, I watch a lot of dating shows, and I watch Ultimatum. And it's funny, for men, it's actually so the whole show premise is about one of the partners wants the other partner to either marry them or break off the relationship. That's the whole premise. For almost most of the guys, the reason why they don't commit to the other partner is because of finances, because they don't feel secure or they don't feel confident about their financial situation. A lot of the times that's the situation. And so absolutely, it's important for guys. Can you blame them? You know what I mean? Like, is it really that yes, you could figure it out, but it is something that I think, is a sense of insecurity, because if you cannot provide for your family, which I believe as a man you should do, then are you really ready for marriage?
I'll tell you what doesn't help, right? It doesn't help that there's huge societal expectations through social media, because now you can see everybody doing everything.
Yeah.
And, as a woman, you want to go after the person that can provide for you, like you said, security, not just for now, but for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah.
Before it was broad shoulders and tall and big hands. It's like, okay, he can kill a lion for me. Great. But now that's not really the case. It's more like, can we not have to worry about everything from food to shelter to clothes. What if we have kids? I mean, so I think money is, energy, and how you control that energy really can affect your energy in the relationship. And also, what I've encountered is beliefs. There's a lot of beliefs that you have been programmed into you from your culture, your family, your surroundings about what money really is. And I think you really have to be on the same page, with your partner.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we talked about, we both agree that money is very important in marriage. I mean, I'm like 200% in agreement with that. Next question would be, should you really get your security from money? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as a Christian, obviously the answer is no. You shouldn't get your security from anything, from anyone, or really anything besides God. And yet, I would say, and the truth is, like, money is never secure. If it can fly away, the Bible says it can fly away like an eagle, right? It's like no one's actually secure with money. One sickness, like if you got sick, you lost everything,
Sure.
and sure, you can have life insurance, but let's just say you have a family, right? And let's just say Jessica's not able to work because she has to take care of the kids. Money can be gone like this. So no, money is not to be getting. It's not really. I don't think it could bring you that security that you may want, and I don't think it's necessarily about the actual money. I think it's about having a focused mission with your partner. And so the way I look at money is it encourages communication, right? There's so many other aspects to how you guys do, handle your money. Like, it encourages communication. It gives you metrics, right? Clear metrics that you can see, like, hey, I overspent here, right? It gives you micro goals to pursue together, right? Such as like getting a new car or buying a home. We being real estate agents, we see this all the time, and it encourages like setting expectations. It allows one to build trust and on delivering on some of those expectations. And it also, I feel like, allows you to enjoy experiences more. You know what I mean by that? Like, for example, if you guys are saving, you guys are sacrificing for that vacation, you can enjoy that experience so much more. Even for food, like my wife and I, we don't go eat out all the time. It's not about the money, but it's about like, it's so much better to eat really good, nice, fancy food after we've like really sacrificed. We really like protected our budget and saved for it. And then all of a sudden that food just seems so much better. I know people who eat fancy food all the time. Dan Brazilian, famous Instagram guy or social media guy, he eats 10 out of 10 food all the time. And he says that the food just doesn't taste as good when you eat the food all the time. So I think that sacrifice really just makes that big difference in that experience. Other things, like I think budgeting grows like builds character. It grows your discipline. It teaches delayed gratification, which is a huge part to success. It encourages integrity, following through with your commitments, which I believe is very important in marriage in general. And it teaches patience, hard work, sacrifice. I think there's a lot of aspects to money that can actually be beneficial to your marriage and also to you and your character.
Do you mind sharing anything that you and your wife are talking about right now in terms of finances?
It's difficult to answer that question only because like we've already went through so many, I would say, arguments.
Yeah, give us something. Be blunt. Yeah, give us something. Like maybe it was this way, this happened, and then it's now this.
For example, just our personal spending money, right? That's one where some of us would like go over our personal spending money, and then we would just see this constant pattern. It's like, hey, we're going over our personal spending money. There's grace, right? But then it's like at a certain point, you got to figure out, hey, what's going on here? Can you help me understand? Let's try to figure this out. Let's create expectations. Okay, if you can't, stick to this amount of personal spending money, then what's our next option? How can we really make sure that we're, sticking to this. There's so many situations. I've been to vacations, and I'm going to tell you a story, and everyone's going to hate me for this, but wife wanted a painting, a created painting that someone drew right on the spot or whatever, just on the street, because our friends got this really nice painting, right? It was like 250 euros or something. It wasn't cheap, right? And so for me,
oh my God, that's super expensive.
It's like we have a certain spending, because every time we go travel, we have a certain spending budget for the travel. This would set us back quite a lot, and I don't think we would have enough for the rest of the trip.
Yeah,
$250 for a picture. So we actually had an argument about this, like literally a half a day. We were just angry at each other. What ended up happening was she ended up, and it's going to make me look really bad, but she ended up getting a postcard that she ended up framing, and that postcard.
Oh wow!
Literally like $3 postcard that's framed right in the middle of our bedroom in our wall.
I love that.
So I could take a look at it every day.
I love that.
But you see, those are the kinds of situations where it's like, it's a really tough situation, right? It's like, I want to keep to our budgets. Rebecca really wants, it's just a painting, and could we afford it? Of course we could afford it. But it's like that, that dynamic of how do we handle this, these expectations.
I love that example because money is so in your face. Like, it's dollars and cents, guys. It's just, you see it, now you don't. It went this way, it went that way. One of the hardest things I've really, done for myself and my family was really budgeting, because I don't like looking at what I spent money on. And yet the truth is there. I remember having a family meeting because I was like, man, we're way over budget. So we call for a meeting. My wife Jessica sits down, and I'm like looking at all my numbers, and I'm like, oh man, it's me.
But you first came at Jessica.
I called the meeting because I was like trying to,
you got to control your.
We have a problem. Actually, it's me.
I
remember just laughing about it, and she kind of teases me about it because I am more the spender. I love the experiences, and yet now it's like, fun. How can we have these experiences at home, right?
Yeah,
I love that, man. I appreciate you sharing that.
There's always one. So. John Gottman talks about this. Dave Ramsey also talks about this as well. For people who don't know John Gottman, he's like one of the most world-renowned marriage experts. Yeah. And Dave Ramsey is one of the leading. He is the biggest personality when it comes to finances. And they talk about there's always one person in a couple setting, always one person who is the spender and one person who's the saver.
It's me.
And so it's not always like that, but that's usually how it is. And to meet those minds and that's why you have to really like plan. You have to meet those minds, and you have to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this together? How are we going to figure this out when we have different views on money and different spending habits?
It's so important. And then on top of all that, when you have kids, now you're speaking to them and they're learning from you about money.
Yeah.
And when those conversations don't align with each other, you can't give your kids two different pieces of advice, right? There is one way and so it's actually helped me to be much more disciplined with my spending, because I clearly know the pain of, okay, I spent this and now I've been over, I have to adjust. So I personally do a budget all the way from, every penny. It's painful, but every penny that I spend or even make on interest, like I'll see that Bank of America sent me 3 cents on interest for this month, and I'll log it in just because I have to, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to talk about? So is there anything you want to talk about regarding budget? I know you're a big budgeter.
Yeah. Let me address that in a little bit. I just want to say that one of the biggest reasons why I'm passionate about finances is because I saw my parents really struggle through this. And I used to judge my parents a lot about this.
Sure.
Why didn't you guys control your money? Why didn't you guys budget? Why didn't you guys do a lot of these things? And this is a whole nother podcast episode in itself. One of the things that I am starting to realize after I just watched this show, something with tangerines. It's a famous
Oh
Korean
my
show.
God, my wife is watching that right now.
Yeah. Okay. Really emotional
Oh,
show.
man.
Don't watch it for
Can we not
anybody.
cry on the podcast?
Don't watch it. It's so emotional, but it actually really reveals that they lived in a different world than us.
Yes,
In
yes,
Korea,
yes.
they lived in like a third world country, honestly. But regardless, Korea, a lot of our parents were just in survival mode. Let's put food on the table. That's all that really matters. They didn't have all these marriage advices. They didn't have, budgeting, finance gurus like Dave Ramsey. They didn't have all this information that we do. And so I'm starting to lower my expectations towards my parents. And just to share a little bit about them, I saw my mom. Both are spenders, by the way. There was no savers in that marriage. I saw my mom really feel insecure often for a very long period of time. Just the insecurity with money was such a huge theme. And you just saw like ugly sides of her come out. They just really, I lived a pretty good life, lived in a big home and went to a private school, you name it. I mean, it's all great, but I did see a lot of internal problems. Like externally, we looked really good, but internally there was a lot of issues in the sense that, money was just a huge issue. My dad made a lot of money. That's the thing. But then we would spend all of that money and it was just a really tough, it was a tough environment. So that's why I'm so passionate about, budgeting and being good with my finances. And and I could see it manifest in my marriage 100%. It's just so much more secure when you have boundaries, when you know where your money's going. And so to get into your question now about budgeting is boundaries. That's really what it is. You're creating boundaries in your relationship, in your marriage. And when you have those boundaries, it improves your marriage so much, in my opinion, because it doesn't allow, like, you can make all the money in the world, but it doesn't allow you to be able to just spend frivolously. And it feels good. Actually, that constraint, those boundaries, those frames that you have, it actually feels better when you have those constrictions, which is opposite to what people think. Oh, if I had all the money in the world, I could just spend and do all that. But just like Dan Brazilian said, is when you are just spending your money, and I see this all the time because I'm around wealthy people all the time. It's like it's not necessarily the life that you think. It actually feels way better when you go on vacation once a year, if you can't even afford that, rather than going on vacation, 7-8 times in a year. It's just a different dynamic. So I think budgeting really helps with that. It kind of facilitates that discipline aspect, which feels really good.
Yeah, that's another myth too that I've had to work hard to understand is boundaries give you freedom instead of shackling you down, because immediately the short-term reaction is I can't do what I want to do right now, right? But it's just like going to exercise versus watching TV, or eating this food versus that food.
Yeah.
Or, we can go on and on. But I think the budgeting, I love what you said, budgeting is boundaries. And if you give yourself boundaries, you can be free within those boundaries, because you're not stressing over where is my boundary all the time. And if you're not budgeting, you don't know where your boundary is. And you have this cycle of overspending, or underestimating, right? Overspending. Yeah. And then you get to the next month and it's like, where's my money? We talk about our Chase credit card bills all the time. It's like every time we get our Chase credit card bill,
we're always like,
I'm going to prove them wrong.
Chase stole money from me.
And then I'm like,
these are wrong. And you added them up.
And you were like, oh man.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, and it's a little game we play. We laugh about it. Right. But I agree with you. I love what you said. I think that's like a thing you could, put on a plaque. Budgeting is boundaries.
Yeah.
And for kids too, like I really relate a lot of adult things to kid stuff now, because when you give advice, again, I'm a parent of 2, I got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. whenever you give your kids advice, it's so simple because you have to make it simple.
Yeah.
And if you just flip the script on yourself, it's kind of, well, that's really what we need to hear, right?
Yeah.
And if you talk to any teacher, educator, psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, kids need boundaries to feel free and safe and secure, right? The kids that are running around without them, without the parents to guide them, without, those kind of restrictions on their life, they actually feel more insecure. And I think that's how budgeting really works, is you can see the trail of, I made my box, I'm going to live in it, I can change it, but I understand what's coming in and what's going out. And I think that gives you freedom.
It's funny that you say that because my cousin says the same thing. She's a fourth grade teacher. She's been a teacher for over a decade now.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's so crazy, those boundaries. There's something about boundaries and security. We don't want them. We want to break from those boundaries, but then it gives us that security. And again, like if you have that security within a marriage, it really does like make someone feel so much better. It makes them feel, even though you're still broke, right? But just even having that plan and the budgeting, it really does help with getting the best side of people because it gives that weird sense of security. So it's kind of opposite to what the world says, live your life, do what you want, go, just, YOLO or whatever, right? It's like, but those things are not free. They're going to feel good temporarily. That's the thing. All these things that we're doing, they're only good temporarily, but it's not going to make you happy long term. If you want that lasting happiness, some people chase the quick happiness, right? They go on that vacation, spend all their money, and they're like, on this euphoric high, they come back, they're like, oh, I'm broke, my life sucks, blah, blah, blah. And that's not really what you want. So.
By the way, when you said YOLO, you seriously dated yourself.
Oh, by the way, YOLO is a color.
I know your English is challenged. Well, I think, okay, yeah. I'll throw you another one just because this is so important, and I think we can move on. So buckets, right? So I do have a freedom bucket. Like I have a fun bucket of money that, I put a certain percentage of my income on. And the way I was taught, Tom Ferry, I think you shared that video with me. It's like, how do millionaires think and how do, especially business owners, think? And it's a lesson that anybody can take. It's not just business owners, right? You get some money. Maybe you have it already taken, the taxes have been taken out, Social Security has been taken out, or you take it out, doesn't matter. But you have these buckets of things for life expenses or household expenses or food or whatever. I have a fun budget. And I know that even if that bucket goes completely empty, I could be, intoxicated, whatever that bucket doesn't really affect my life because all of my investments are still good.
Yes.
I'm putting food on the table. I'm putting gas in my car, but I literally labeled it fun money.
Yes.
So the freedom I have to go in there and be like, I can just blow it all. But I'm like 10%. That's like 10% of my income, right? So anyway, that's, I think there's so much to talk about, but to get now into the actions, right? So we've talked about, is money important in marriage? Yes. How do we get started on getting your financial health in order? What are some things that you think about? What's your framework around this?
Yeah. It starts with many times it starts with hitting the rock bottom. You have to get so serious about this. You basically have to say, I have financial cancer. You got to take it that seriously. Because if you're in month-to-month survival jail, right? Financial month-to-month survival jail, I would say you'll stay there until you plan your way out of it. That's just what's going to happen. If you don't watch your money will leave you. And that's happened to me so many times. Probably has happened to you many times.
Oh, sure.
For some reason, it's like when you're not planning your money, like even before I did the bucket system, it was really hard for me to control the money. Like I would just not have any at the end of the month. Like what? I just made a crazy amount of money
Right,
in the last
exactly.
3 months. What happened? Like, why don't, where's all the money? And it's because I didn't have a plan for it. It's because I didn't watch it, right? And that's really what happens. It's not about how much money you make. Because I know people making $500,000 a year who's barely making it every single month. And I know that sounds crazy.
It's true.
There's so many people who make 250,000 plus who are broke going month to month because they let their lifestyles grow because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and they're broke. And so don't get arrogant just because you make a lot of money, because you make $200,000 to $500,000 a year. Don't get arrogant. A lot of people here, being near Microsoft, Amazon, they make that kind of money. But a lot of them spend it and they let their lifestyles take over them. So I would say for sure, make sure that you don't get too arrogant. Make sure that you take this incredibly serious, and both partners need to be very aware of this. Mind you, when you're doing this, you're going to have 5 to 10 bullets trying to derail you. You're going to have gunshots that you have to say, no, I'm not going to let this affect me, because it's going to, that vacation with your friends, everyone's going. Why aren't you going to go? Right? Or your friends decide to go to a Michelin star restaurant. Like, everyone's going. We're all doing this. Come on, you want to come? It's like, no. This is that's another bullet. It's going to try to derail you, but you really have to take this very serious and be like, no, we got to get out of debt. We got to start saving money. Now, how do you start? Just to answer your question, you start with an emergency fund. This may not be for everybody. Statistically, it's for a lot of people, but that's where you would start. How much emergency funds do you need? Well, first of all, you need to know how much expenses that you have. So if you have, let's just say, $10,000 in monthly expenses for you and your family of 4, right? Then you should have, at very minimum, for people who are just starting, who really don't have much money at all, you should start with at least $1,000. That's not going to be enough for a real emergency, but that's a great start. So make that a goal, write it down, start with 1,000. Then from there, you want to get 3 to 6 months of emergency savings at the very least. Cash. This is not an investment. This is not in your 401k. This is cash, liquid, because the emergency is going to come. Okay. Anything more than, I would say more than 12 months of emergency savings, just as a side note, it's too much money. It's actually a waste, because because of inflation and the interest rates that they're giving right now, that's just too much cash right now. Unless you're trying to, wait to time the market, you shouldn't hold too much cash. It may make you feel better, but it's just not financially wise. So that's where you would start. Second thing you want to do is you want to list out all of your debts. Something that you don't want to do. It feels uncomfortable when you see, oh my gosh, I owe all this money. It's so much better to live in ignorance and watch Netflix and play a bunch of video games. And that's what the majority of the world does. What you want to do is list them out, put them on a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet, or write it down and write out the exact amount. And that'll be a kind of a sobering conversation. From there, then you want to find your smallest debt and start tackling that smallest debt. Again, emergency savings first. That has to be filled up first. That bucket needs to be filled up before anything else. Even credit card debt, even whatever it is, you need to fill that up. And people might be like, well, that's ridiculous. Why don't I just pay the credit card debt? That's 25% interest. Or why don't I pay the highest interest first before the lower interest? According to Dave Ramsey, this is not coming from me, I'm just regurgitating what he's saying. According to Dave Ramsey, you want to focus on the smallest debts first, because a lot of this is psychology. They've done studies on this. You just want to get rid of, it's called the debt snowball. You want to get rid of one and then another and then another, and just keep going. Forget the whole like higher interest and lower interest thing. The other thing I would do is, if you have the margin, of course, if you don't have the margin, if you're still working on your emergency savings, then don't do this. max out your 401ks, max out your Roth IRAs, because it just makes financial sense because, I mean, with the way taxes work, it just makes sense to do that. And so if you can do it, please max out your retirement accounts. The goal here at the end of the day, I don't want to get too much. I mean, we can go into real estate, we can go into 529s, things that we do. But the goal here is to be debt free. The goal here is to have enough residual income that you don't have to work anymore. Now, you can choose to work, of course, but you don't have to work. And that would be the end goal. So long-winded, but that's where I would start.
Yeah, I've also learned a lot of things from Dave Ramsey. You've introduced me to him, and I routinely watch his interviews with people, and I would actually encourage people to look it up. Like, just type in Dave Ramsey, on YouTube, and there's tons of regular people that make anywhere from, really poverty level, to be honest.
Yeah, like seriously, like 50, 40, $30,000 a year.
Like pre-tax, right?
Yeah.
And then you have people that make millions of, there's a whole gamut and a whole range of people. And it's so easy to judge others than to judge yourself. And I see people just like me try to mentally kind of weasel out of taking that responsibility. And I used to do that too. And I still sometimes struggle with that. It's like, well, what if I did this, or I did this for a good reason, but what about this? And Dave Ramsey's like, how much debt do you have? I'm 22 years old and I have a $1 million debt. Like, that's a real story.
Yeah.
And wait, hold on.
That one.
Yeah. How much money do you make? Oh, I think we combined make 80,000 a year. It's like, it's so hard to put pen to paper. And your advice, I think, is timeless in the sense that it could be a 20, I actually just got talking to a 17-year-old who has a part-time job at Safeway. One of our past clients was a teacher, and it was one of her students. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how much money he's making. I won't disclose it. And then we've also talked to people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. The advice is the same. Are you tracking your numbers? Are you doing a budget? What's coming in? What's going out? And this kid, he's saving like 40% of his income. And I'm like, you are doing, I just had to encourage him. You are doing so good.
Yeah.
At 17 years old,
oh man,
I had no willpower, negative willpower, right?
Yeah.
This kid is thinking about his future. It's not, again, the amount of money you make, but what you're doing with that. So I really appreciate you laying that out.
Let me just say that it really isn't about how much money you make, because there are people who are at poverty level incomes, mm-hmm. have much more than people who are in the top 5 to 10% in income. And it sounds crazy, but lifestyle creep is a real thing. I've seen it so many times. Yes. These people who, they just see everyone else doing it. It's just horrible, because it's like COVID, where it's like it just spreads. You see your friend driving the nice cars. You see your friends going to the nice restaurants. Instagram, everything.
Social media.
And you're like, oh, yeah, I should have that same kind of lifestyle. And you just see these people spending all of their money, not saving any money, not investing any money. And actually, not only that, some of them, a really disciplined person making $50,000 a year versus someone who's making $250,000 a year who is not disciplined, this $50,000 a year guy or girl will have more money than the $250,000 a year person.
Yes.
Because their savings rate is much higher. Their expenses are much less, and they will, because once you get your emergency fund and you pay down your debts, then you're starting to invest, versus these people are high in debt, spending all of their credit cards, and I've just seen these people just go even more broke because they're more in debt than these people. And so I've seen it in my life as well. When I wasn't making that much money, I was still doing okay, just because I was able to reduce my living expenses so much.
Just look up athletes who make 9 figures or more. You know, like Mike Tyson, I think his lifetime earnings was like 600 million plus.
Yeah.
You can look it up, right? And he went bankrupt.
Crazy.
And he's negative, you know? Once you have these expenses or expectations or lifestyle creep that happens to you, it's crazy the amount of money you need to make just to stay afloat. Literally, you're just treading water and you feel like the water is coming up to here.
Yeah.
It's not a good place to be. And I think it's okay also to say that once you start changing your habits for the better, you may lose things, like lose friends.
Yes.
Lose, you know, you might have to change your environment that you hang out in, the circles, right? Because if like you said, if all they want to do is eat out and kind of live up to here, up to their, you know, limits of their means, then you're going to be affected as well. I mean, we are the average of, they say, the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So if from that point, let's say you follow your steps, people follow, you know, Dave Ramsey's steps, the things that you talked about, and you are breaking free of that cycle, that chain, whatever you want to say. The next question and the last question would be, is there a point where you have enough money? You know, what's another million? What's another 100,000? Does that even exist? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, it's I would get judged because they're like, why don't you enjoy your life? I get that all the time. Just enjoy your life. You have enough now. You just enjoy your life. And I do, honestly. I really never went on vacations before. And I go out on a lot more vacations. I do eat nicer, you know, at nicer areas or nicer places. And I do enjoy my life. Yet money is it's an interesting concept where you think if you have a certain amount, you will have enough. But it really is, you know, like what's The Greatest Showman? It's never enough, right? It's like, it's just not enough because remember, you can spend money so easily. Again, assume I'm making $1 million a year. I can spend that million so easily and people don't realize it.
Oh, yeah.
You pay the taxes, right? You got to pay the government. You got to pay, you know, your mortgage. You got to pay, or your rent, you know, your high rent because you're living better. Eating out in restaurants, you could easily spend $5,000 a month just eating out and groceries. Seriously, like people do this. They eat out all the time. And, but for me, this is the way I look at things, is that it's not about the money that I have. I think bigger. I think when you're thinking like, oh, why don't you enjoy your life? Why don't you, you know, just start like relaxing and live a little, right? That's actually not the way I look at things. I think that's a small, that's a tunnel vision way to look at life. Personally, for me, if I have extra money, I'm going to be extra generous with my money. And that's when you realize that you will never have enough. Because because that bucket is as deep as the ocean, you know, you can always give. You could always give more money. And that's a place that me and my wife are at, right? Yeah, we're staying disciplined. Yeah, we're not eating out at that restaurant. We're not going out on that vacation we really want to go on. Yet, we use that money to be able to bless others, tithe to our church, to I want to be careful here because I don't want to talk about our giving, but we give a lot and we love giving. I was going to talk about numbers, but I really enjoy, like I find more life in giving away some of our funds. There's just something it does to our lives, our marriage, just being generous to people. And that's where, if the bucket's endless like that, why not make more money? Why not be more generous? If I'm out of debt completely and my investments are making so much and I'm making more money, why not? Because I think if you're living life for yourself, that's when life just gets so dull, you know? But when you're thinking about other people, that's when life really begins and life really blooms.
Yeah, and there's no pressure, right, to have a set amount to give. But I think giving is such an integral part of, like, we're meant to be together in community. We're meant to give toward each other. Okay, you're 17 years old and you don't have money, give your time, right? I mean, my mom always The one thing I remember about going to church as a kid is that my mom volunteered at like adult family homes, and we would just take a guitar, play for them, hold their hands. That's giving too, or volunteer at your church or your school or whatever, right? And if you're fortunate enough to give more than you can, but I always tell my kids this because I think about it all the time. If you can't share $1 of $10, you're probably not going to share 100,000 of 1,000,000, and so on and so forth. I think that's where the budget comes in. You can have a budget for giving, right? Instead of going out to eat, because let's do the math here. If I just go out to eat some pho or teriyaki, I got ×4, right? $50, $70, $100. I mean, but can we do something else with our time, energy, and money? Yes, we can. We can do other things that bless other people. And I do admire that part about you and Rebecca, because you really need to have consolidation. You need to have the same mind to do that. And I think that's a blessing as well.
A couple things. I want to say it doesn't matter how much money we make. If I had $100 million, $100 million, personally for me, I don't want our lifestyles to change too much. I want it to be very similar to where it is today. I want to live in this house. We may go out and eat a little bit, nicer places, but to be honest, I just want to be that much more generous. And that would be like that. That's honestly like my incentive here for life. It's not to live this super extravagant life. That's not really an incentive. I just want to be more generous. The second reason why I do save, the reason why I stay disciplined still, the reason why I worked so hard to get here, because I really did. I came from a place where we were several $100,000 in debt, not my debt, but my parents' debt. And I had a bunch of debt, credit card debt, you name it. I had $20 in my bank account. Yep. Okay. I was in that place. I got out of all of that, and I've been able to build wealth, right? My biggest incentive wasn't to live a lavish lifestyle. My incentive was to be financially free, to have time. And that's really the biggest, most important commodity for me, is to have time, to be able to spend time with my children, to be able to spend time with my wife, because our families need our time, right? And so some people might want the Lamborghini. I don't care about that. I want to have more time to be able to spend time with my family, and to be able to spend time with friends without feeling like I got to work more, and to be able to be generous with other people who may need some more of my time, to listen, to volunteer, to work at nonprofits. That's really my biggest incentive. And I would hope that other people would feel the same, where it really isn't about that lavish lifestyle. It really isn't. It's more to be able to, not have to work. It is such an important, such a beautiful thing, such a freeing thing. And I would wish that upon everyone.
Yeah, well said. And maybe we'll touch on this even later, but there's so many ways to have your cake and eat it too, in terms of, what are the most rewarding things? It's really experiences. I mean, they've done studies on this, right?
Yeah.
And there are ways to kind of hack your way into having experienced those things. What people really think about is ownership. Like, I need to have this. I need to own this. But what they're really wanting is, I want to experience this, right? So, like the Lamborghini, right? Like, I'm a car guy. So you don't need to have one, right? I would buy a house and have $3,000 in rental income if that was the case. But you can go rent one for an hour. And most people don't realize that's just as satisfying, because I've done it, right? You can make trips into, like a mission trip. Like, I was just looking at this church that I'm going out to, and they have all these mission trips all across the world. And I'm like, man, how cool would it be if my whole family, including my kids, learned how to pick up a shovel with some kids in fill in a country, right? So anyway, I think, so I really appreciate you sharing your perspective. The one thing I do want to talk or kind of share to cap this off for you is that, when I think people like the outcome of something or somebody, but they don't necessarily want the journey to have gotten there. And if you look at a lot of successful people, why are they so driven to be this or that? Well, there's there's definitely a story behind all those things that made them get to that place. And if you really compare your troubles and pains from the past to other people, I mean, the other saying is if everybody puts their problems on a table, like you'll pick yours up right away, right? So I think there is context, there's grace, there's love. And yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of cap it off.
Yeah. I would say last thing, just be kind, have grace. One of my biggest problems, because I am the saver and I'm very disciplined. And there are people who are watching this are going to be the really disciplined person. Stick to your guns at certain things, right? At the same time, be kind, be gracious when there's a mess up. Because sometimes, like for me, I've been budgeting for over 10 years before I got married. Actually, sorry, 15 years before I got married. It took me a long time to be able to stick to my budgets, right? Yeah. A lot of discipline. And I also have a personality of being very disciplined. The other person may not be at that level. And so to be kind and being gracious when they're not able to get to that level that quickly, right? Because you could also break it as well. You could break the person where they're just like they're going to hate Dave Ramsey. There's a lot of people who do hate Dave Ramsey, and you just want to do it kindly and learn how to influence in a kind way. Make sure that they're heard. Set expectations, have a plan B. Okay, if we're not able to get this done, then what happens, right? Do we cut up our credit cards? And I know that sounds intense, but it's like, okay, let's make an agreement here because this has happened 7 times, right? How do we then get better? So there's this there's also that dynamic as well, just to be kind to each other, but then sticking to your guns. So you got to have a good balance there. And man, if you're single, please start now. Please, whoever you are, man or woman, please start budgeting now and learn because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It takes a long time to get good at budgeting. You're not going to learn it in 6 months. You're going to learn it in several years to get really good. So.
It takes time. Yeah, it's like a muscle. Reach out to us. We're happy to share spreadsheets, anything, Happy to do it with you, be accountable with you. I mean, we do it all the time anyway, right? For our clients and friends and family. And I think that's all great advice.
Yeah. And guys, for those of you guys who are watching, the very few, we're just starting out here. And so if you like this video, please hit that like button, and also please subscribe. We don't have a lot of subscribers, but for the very few people who are with us, we appreciate you, and we'll see you guys on the next video.